For decades, two hidden federal rules gutted Social Security for the people who taught your kids, ran into burning buildings, and kept your streets safe. Teachers, firefighters, cops, their retirement benefits were cut, sometimes wiped out completely. But on January 5th, 2025, the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset were repealed forever. If you were affected, you may be owed a lump sum payment you never expected. Over 2 million retired public servants, teachers, firefighters, police officers, are right now receiving lump sum checks for money that was wrongly withheld from them. The repeal of the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset is the biggest change to Social Security in 4 decades. But the real story isn't just the back pay. It's how a well-intentioned rule quietly turned into a punishment that stole billions from the people who showed up first, and how it almost never got fixed. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to 1983. Social Security was running out of money. The country needed a fix, fast, so a commission led by Alan Greenspan proposed a sweeping reform package. Tucked inside that bill were 2 small provisions that almost nobody noticed at the time: the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. Here is what they were supposed to do. Some state and local government employees didn't pay Social Security taxes on their public jobs. Teachers in 15 states, firefighters, police in many jurisdictions. But they could still qualify for benefits through a spouse or by working a short-second career. Congress worried they'd receive a windfall, collecting both a full government pension and a full Social Security check. So the WEP reduced the Social Security benefit formula for people with non-covered pensions. The GPO cut spousal and survivor benefits by 2/3 of the government pension, often wiping those benefits out completely. The logic sounded fair on paper. Close a loophole. But the formulas were blunt instruments that ensnared millions of workers who never saw it coming. Take a middle school librarian in Massachusetts. She worked 30 years in the public schools, paying into a state pension. She also worked summers and weekends in covered jobs. She paid Social Security taxes for over 20 years. At retirement, her annual Social Security statement projected a monthly benefit of $800. Then her first check arrived at just over $400. WEP cut it nearly in half. And because she also received a small teacher's pension, GPO eliminated the survivor benefit from her deceased husband entirely. She found out only when the money never showed up. That was the hidden cruelty. Social Security statements didn't show the reduction. For decades, millions of public servants prepared for retirement based on numbers that were never real. By the time they learned the truth, it was too late. Public employee unions and affected workers have been fighting to repeal these rules for over 40 years. Bills were introduced in Congress with bipartisan support since the early 2000s, but they never got a vote. Leadership bottled them up, warning that repeal would cost the trust fund nearly $200 billion over a decade and push the insolvency date even closer. But in the fall of 2024, everything changed. A bipartisan group of lawmakers did what no one had managed in a generation. They forced a vote, whether party leaders wanted it or not. The bill was headed to the floor, and with it, decades of pent-up fury. What happened next would make history, but it would also come with a warning that hasn't gone away. The weapon they used was something called a discharge petition, a rare parliamentary move that forces a bill out of committee and onto the floor, even if the speaker refuses to schedule it. To succeed, they needed 218 signatures, a simple majority of the House. For months, pressure built slowly, then all at once. On September 19, 2024, the 218th name was added. The bill was no longer bottled up. It was alive. When the House finally voted on November 12th, the result was staggering: 327 to 75. Not a narrow partisan squeaker, a landslide. Republicans and Democrats alike had finally been forced to go on record. For every lawmaker who had nodded sympathetically at town halls for years, but never acted, there was no more hiding. Behind that vote were thousands of faces like Susan, a retired firefighter's widow in Ohio. Her husband served 32 years, died of a heart attack, 2 years into retirement. His pension was modest. Susan had worked part-time jobs her whole life and paid into Social Security. But when she applied for survivor benefits, the GPO kicked in. Her benefit was zero. Every month, she saw her statement, and it said $0. She lived on her husband's pension alone for nearly a decade. Then there was David, a retired police officer from Texas. He had paid into Social Security for 25 years through private security work before joining the force. At 62, he was told his benefit would be over $1,000 a month. After WEP, it was cut to $587. He didn't find out until the letter came 10 days after his retirement party. Multiply those stories by more than 2 million. That's the true scale of what happened. Teachers who coached basketball for 20 years, firefighters who worked second jobs, police widows who thought their husband's sacrifice meant they'd be cared for. All of them victims of formulas that treated their service as a penalty. But here is the thing. While the House vote was decisive, the real fight was in the Senate. The bill had to pass during a lame duck session, a chaotic window where countless priorities collide. Opponents warned that the 10-year price tag, nearly $200 billion, would advance Social Security's insolvency by 6 months. A handful of senators, led by fiscal conservatives, threatened to block it. For weeks, the outcome was uncertain. Advocacy groups flooded Capitol Hill. Retired teachers flew in from 15 states. Firefighters in uniform lined the hallways. They told their stories to anyone who would listen. On December 21st, the Senate voted 76 to 20. Even in a polarized chamber, the bill cleared by a huge margin. The defenders of the punishing formulas had lost. President Biden signed the Social Security Fairness Act into law on January 5, 2025. For the first time in more than 40 years, the WEP and GPO were gone. The law included a retroactive payment clause covering benefits back to January 2024. The Social Security Administration began processing payments in February, and as of July, over 3 million one-time payments totaling $17 billion had already gone out, 5 months ahead of schedule. Recipients saw average monthly increases of $360, and some survivors, like Susan, suddenly had $700, even $1,100 a month they'd never seen before. It felt like a fairy tale ending, but beneath the celebration, a quiet warning lingered. The same trust fund that now pays those increased benefits is still projected to run short in just a few years. And the fight over who pays for it and who gets left out is only beginning. That quiet warning I mentioned, it got loud fast. Within days of the signing ceremony, budget watchdogs ran the numbers, and what they found sent a chill through Washington. The repeal will add an estimated $195.7 billion to the federal deficit over the next decade. The Social Security Trust Fund's projected insolvency date, already alarmingly close, moved up by roughly 6 months. But here is what nobody expected. Married to that price tag is an uncomfortable truth. Most public employees, about 72%, already paid into Social Security through their government jobs. They were never affected by the WEP or GPO in the first place. That means the entire cost of the fix falls on a system that serves everyone, while the direct benefit flows to a specific minority of retirees. It was the right thing to do, but it also sharpened a question that politicians have dodged for years. Who pays for the safety net when the bill finally comes due? And the bill is coming. The Social Security Trustees project that by the early 2030s, the combined trust funds will be exhausted. If Congress does nothing, automatic, across-the-board benefit cuts of about 20% hit every single recipient. Not just public sector retirees, but every worker, every widow, every disabled veteran. So while 3 million people are finally getting back months, years of stolen income, the math for the other 67 million beneficiaries just got tighter. The irony is bitter. For 4 decades, workers like Susan and David fought simply to receive what their statements promised. Now, some of the same fiscal conservatives who voted against the repeal are warning that the entire system is on the brink, and that they may have to claw back those very same benefits through backdoor reforms. Proposals to raise the retirement age, reduce cost of living adjustments, or means test benefits have already resurfaced. In effect, the victory could become a Trojan horse. But wait, it gets even bigger. The one-time payments now arriving in bank accounts are not the end of this story. The Social Security Fairness Act forces ongoing monthly increases. That means the trust fund draws will permanently rise, stress testing a system that was already failing its stress tests. The agency itself, understaffed and overwhelmed, is racing to adjust benefits for millions, while simultaneously warning Congress that the overall fund is bleeding out. And that bleeds directly into your life. Because if the safety net gets shredded, your retirement, your parents' retirement, your kids' future taxes, everything gets rewritten. The question is no longer about what the government owes public servants. It's about whether the entire promise of Social Security can survive the math, and what you should be doing right now to prepare for the answer. The answer is already taking shape, and it has two faces. On one side, the money is real, and it is changing lives right now. Susan, the Ohio firefighter's widow, received a one-time payment of over $14,000 in March. For the first time in a decade, her monthly check is no longer zero. It's $760 a month, every month, permanently. David, the retired police officer, saw his monthly benefit jump from $587 to just over $1,000, and his back pay topped $9,000. Truckloads of letters have gone out from the Social Security Administration, each one rewriting what a retirement looks like. As of July, more than 3.1 million payments, totaling $17 billion, have been sent 5 months ahead of the agency's own deadline. That speed is itself a miracle for an agency that's been systematically underfunded for years. But it also reveals something sharper. The government knew who was owed this money all along. The records existed. The formulas they applied for 40 years were deliberate, not an accident of lost data. They could have fixed it at any moment, but they didn't until the political cost of doing nothing finally exceeded the fiscal cost of action. On the other face of the answer is the cold math. The trust fund's exhaustion clock is ticking faster, not slower, after the fix. If Congress fails to act, automatic cuts of about 20% will slash benefits for everyone beginning in the early 2030s. That means David's newly restored $1,000 check could drop to $800, still better than $587, but nowhere near what he planned for. And the painful reality is that the group helped by the repeal, public service retirees, remains deeply vulnerable. They fought for decades just to get back to zero, only to face a new cliff that could pull the rug again. But here is the surprising detail. Few people know. While the WEP and GPO repeal fixes benefits going forward, the retroactive lump sums are not considered taxable income for the year they are received if you paid taxes in prior years. But many retirees don't realize they may need to file an amended return or adjust withholding. Tax preparers are seeing a wave of confused seniors. The system didn't just withhold money, it created a bureaucratic maze that still isn't fully mapped. Thousands of recipients may owe nothing, but thousands more will need to carefully navigate the rules or risk penalties on their restoration payments. So what do you do with this information? First, if you or someone in your family worked in a non-covered government job, check the Social Security Fairness Act updates on the SSA website. If you are already receiving benefits, confirm that your new monthly amount and any lump sum are correct. If you haven't applied for spousal or survivor benefits because you thought they were wiped out, apply now. The rules have changed, and the window for retroactive claims may be limited. Second, no matter who you are, this story is a warning. The safety net you are counting on is a political agreement, not a fixed guarantee. The WEP and GPO repeal restored fairness after 40 years, but it also accelerated the broader reckoning. Your future depends on decisions being debated right now, and the people debating them are the same people who let millions suffer for decades. Pay attention. Prepare accordingly. The lesson of the WEP and GPO repeal is not just that justice can finally arrive, it's that it almost always arrives late, and sometimes just in time to see the next storm gathering. And that storm is real. The trust fund's horizon is tightening for everyone, not just teachers and cops, but every worker who checked a box assuming the promise would be kept. If you are under 50, plan for a world where the rules aren't what they are today. If you are over 50, check your statement, update your plan, And don't assume the numbers on the page will survive the next round of negotiations. The WEP and GPO repeal proved that even the most broken systems can be mended. But it also proved that mending comes at a cost, and that cost will be passed on to someone. The only question is whether you'll be ready when it lands. If what I've shared made sense to you, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. There's a special offer for you in the first pinned comment, a resource I put together to help you protect your retirement from the changes ahead. Click the link. Check it out.